Hey, what's up, guys? Note Investor here. So the market continues to pull in a little bit. We're seeing some retracement following a pretty strong move over the weekend and right into resistance again. So want to do a quick analysis on Bitcoin, go over the broader market cap, market sentiment, and just kind of take a quick look at what levels to be watching here near term, what to expect, some of the things that I'm looking out for, my personal opinions on where I think this market's going more in the intermediate and longer term. And so I just want to cover that. Before we get into the charts, let's take a quick look at the market cap here. Total market cap $375 billion, continues to drift lower, although the trajectory is starting to flatten out a little bit. So there's a couple of levels I'm watching here. You can see in the overall market cap since the early part of May has just been in a slow grind down. Let's kind of take a closer look here. And we had this low here in around May 12th at that $370 billion mark with a pretty good rally, and then we made a new lower low last week during consensus, the consensus dump that everybody was not expecting, and we hit around $360 billion, and here we are rallying over the weekend, and then today just kind of pulling in again. And so what I'm watching out here is for a higher low to be established. You can see it's trying to show a little bit of bottoming action. You can see this is reflected in the Bitcoin chart when we take a look right now, and the alt story is very much similar. You can see the altcoins are following suit, and you're seeing most of them kind of just drift lower, especially on the daily chart, still living below the 10 EMA and testing support in a lot of cases here. And so this is kind of a key area to be holding. And so on the alts, 226 was the low last week, and here we are right around 234. So if we can establish a higher low here, that would start to look positive. But ultimately, I want to see it get back above that 246 area, and then confirmation will be getting back above $256 billion. Bitcoin dominance remains about the same. It's drifted higher here slowly. I mean, we were right around 36%. Here we are just shy of 38%, but not a huge change all around. It's just kind of been sitting flat. You can see the other category is also sitting relatively flat here now, and most of these other names are just kind of sitting tight here for the last couple of weeks. So let's take a quick look at the BTC chart. So I'm going to zoom in first and kind of show some near-term action, and then I'll go back to the daily chart. But a couple of things that I was watching over the weekend, there was this inverted head and shoulder pattern playing out here, and it did have a pretty good breakout. The neckline was around that 83.60, 83.70 mark. We saw a pretty good volume pop to the upside, but then it just started to fade and roll over. Today it was a throwback, which is very common, to the neckline, but I was cautious, especially considering the volume on this pullback was pretty high. And here we are just continuing to live below the 10 EMA on that 4-hour chart. Now the other thing to note is this broader downtrend that was in play for quite some time was broken when that inverted head and shoulder broke out, and here we are testing that downtrend line. Now some other folks are also watching a potential falling wedge pattern here. There's a case to be made for that. That's not really the pattern I'm watching here. I'm just kind of watching more of this descending pattern, this reversal pattern here on the lows. And so I'm watching this trend line being tested again. It did undercut the neckline a little bit, so still cautious right now. If you go to the 1-hour chart, the volume patterns have certainly not been in favor of the bulls. Once it broke below, that was a pretty big volume reversal, and you can see on the 1-hour charts, the 10 EMA has been that resistance. We did rally, couldn't close above a couple of times here today, saw another leg down, and knee bounces right now are just being sold into. But we're at a little bit of a juncture here, seeing if we can hold support around this 82.50 level here today near term. So going back to the daily though, this is what I really want to focus on, kind of the bigger picture, right? We had a very strong April following the low that was made, and 50% rally in Bitcoin and much more in many of the other names. Excitement came back. The bear was dead. We made a double bottom. This is it, off to the races, and then we stalled out just shy of 10K, couldn't quite get above, and here we are seeing a retracement. And keep in mind, this pullback is not a huge pullback in terms of measurement. I mean, it's about a 20% pullback, not unusual. We saw a 20+% pullback here in February, and that was a shorter lived one. What makes this one different is the climbing the wall of worry, right? We were all wondering if this is it. Is this the low? Are we going to see sub 6K prices? Is it all going down? Then we had a pretty strong rally. Now we're seeing that pullback. Now this pullback has been going on for an extended period of time, which makes it feel worse, and it's just kind of this slower grind down, even though it's still just 20%. Now on the positive, the level I was watching on the retracement, and I know I've mentioned this in my last couple of videos, but for the entire move, if you go from peak to peak, was that 618 around 8K psychological, and then ultimately around that $7,800 price support level, which is just below the key Fibonacci ratio there. So that was a must hold level we were watching last week, and we did hold that, and we saw a pretty decent rally right into the 10 EMA. Yesterday closed above it briefly, but just couldn't hold on to that, and here we are reversing over now on this daily charts. And so we're 5 hours into this new daily candle as I'm recording this here, and so this is going to be important to see if we make a higher low on this daily. We don't want to see this being retested, because right now this is establishing a pretty good little bit of a double bottom right at that support. If we make a higher low here on the daily chart, another pattern that I'm watching is a potential head and shoulders again. So I'm just kind of seeing these patterns starting to show up, and this is positive all around because these are reversal patterns. These are what you want to see. Now this one is pretty slanted here, so not the cleanest of patterns, but definitely one to watch, especially if we make a higher low on this most recent pullback. So that's what I'm going to be looking out for here in the next couple of days. I will be doing a live stream tomorrow, so be sure to join that. We'll do a lot more in-depth analysis on some of the other names today. Just kind of want to focus on Bitcoin because this is leading the market sentiment overall. So we're seeing this broader downtrend, but there are signs that it's trying to reverse. Again, near term, intermediate term, this is going to be the key level to be holding around that 8K to $7,900 level. And ultimately, we got to get back above this trend line resistance here, this 10 EMA, which right now would mean getting back over that 85.30 mark or so, in and around that zone. Now the overall sentiment in the market, it's kind of interesting. I've seen a lot of consensus takeaway videos, a lot of them very good, and just making some really good points. And so I'm not going to do one. I'm going to bear you guys the time of kind of just rehashing that. I think that's kind of all been done enough. But I guess if I had to summarize it, I would say fatigued was really the word I took away. I mean, just kind of conference fatigue, ICO fatigue, bear market fatigue, and the sentiment all around was, we're still excited about Bitcoin, we're still excited about blockchain, but we want to see something happen now, and in both fronts, not just in the market pricing, right? Everybody wants to see the market really continue higher and show some more bullish momentum, but also on the technological and the project front, right? There's a lot of long projects that have been around for a couple of years now, and technology always takes longer than we expect, and it's usually not what we expect, and there's changes, but people are starting to show some of that impatience now and saying, hey, when are we going to start to see some real life projects and some use cases and enterprises using some of this technology and so forth? And we know it's happening, but just not on a very public level yet, right? Most of the broader public use case for blockchain and crypto is just not there yet. It's very much the early adopters still. And so there's some of that kind of setting in, some realities starting to set in a little bit. And it's just a sentiment reading that I took away all around. I mean, consensus was good. There was a lot of good stuff about it too, but just kind of all around this feeling of people are just a little worn from, I think a lot of it is the market too, but the pricing, but also some of the fatigue from kind of the endless stream of ICOs and new projects and a lot of that stuff, and the lack of seeing some hard results and some real world use cases. So I fully believe we will see that. It's just always takes longer than what people expect. So that's kind of my broader takeaway. Obviously, there's a lot more details than that, and there was a lot of very good and very positive takeaways as well. So near term, just watching this market kind of do its thing here, taking some very short-term trades along the way during these little bounces, during that inverted head and shoulders. There was a falling wedge that I was talking about here a couple videos back that broke out. We saw a pretty decent rally, but you can see we basically ran right into this little bit of a resistance zone here and couldn't even quite get into that area. We bounced right into about 8,600, and just that's what started the pullback. So now near term, I'm going to be watching for a higher low to be established here. I still believe that this 8K 7,900 was the low, and that was a kind of must hold level on this broader daily chart, a good higher low. If that turns out to be the low and we establish a new low here and start to turn higher, that's going to be very bullish in the longer term, just because, you know, this first leg up was kind of the, hey, is the bear dead? Are we sure? And then the pullback is really raising a lot of doubts in people's minds, starting to question maybe that was just another bounce. We've seen this plenty of times before. But if we really start to charge higher, and ultimately if we get above 10K, then that's going to pretty much be the nail in the coffin, as they say, for the bears. That's going to be the final decider, I believe, that people will begin to believe in the bull market that we're seeing. Go into the weekly chart here, and that would also help here as well, right? You can see the weekly chart has been really starting to tighten up here. We're starting to make a series of, you know, higher lows here and lower highs, so it's starting to really tighten up here. Still living below the 10 EMA. This is the third red week in a row, although it just started. So this is going to be interesting to see if we can close the week in the positive, turn it green, and get back above that moving average, and that would also establish a higher low on the weekly chart. So a lot of things are starting to line up here. I believe this is going to be an important week, and for the month of May will be important to kind of set the tone for the next couple of weeks and months in the crypto space. So near term, I'm just going to be watching out for this higher low potential, and then ultimately can we get back above 8,500, and we'll go from there. So I will see you all on the live stream tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care, everyone.